Yeah, the Bible ends where it begins. Kind of. I mean, it's not as if we get to the end of the Bible and the previous 65 books of the canon mean nothing, contribute nothing, do nothing. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground, right? By the time we get to Revelation, wouldn't you agree? Holler if you hear me, it's okay. Oh, okay, good, we're all here. I know it's mandatory chapel, but we can at least have fun together, right? No? No fun. Awesome. No, we've covered a lot of ground, though. I mean, we have Abraham, and we have Moses, and we have David, and we have Ezekiel, and Daniel, and Ezra, and Nehemiah. And then it goes to John the Baptizer, Judas the betrayer, Peter the denier, and Paul the apostle to the Gentiles. We've covered a lot of ground, both geographically and theologically. But I stand by my statement. The Bible ends where it begins. To a degree. In Revelation chapter 21 and 22, this is after the seals have been broken, after the trumpets have sounded, after the bowls have been poured out. This is after Satan and the two beasts have been judged. In chapter 21, verse 3, the voice of God avers, "Come now. The dwelling of God is with humanity. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people. God himself will be with them." The effects of Genesis 3 evaporate. For there's no more crying or death or mourning, for the old order of things has passed away. And as abrupt as it is expected, in chapter 22, we find ourselves once again in a garden. We find ourselves in a garden looking at a tree we haven't seen since Genesis 3. When Adam and Eve forfeit their right and ours to eat from it. A tree with the leaves that can heal the nations, a tree that is no longer protected by a cherubim's flaming sword. Once we come to Revelation 22, we are in a garden, and once again we see the tree of life. The Bible ends the way it begins. In a garden with the tree of life and in the presence of God. But here's the problem. The problem is this. Life isn't lived under the shade of Eden's tree. And life isn't lived under the leaves of healing in the New Jerusalem. No. Life is lived between these two trees. And between these two trees, life is hard. I mean, maybe it's just me, but between these two trees, life is hard. Between these two trees, humanity wrestles with God, both marring and embracing his image. Between these two trees, it's our lives are woven more in a tapestry of struggle. Between these two trees, murder is confused with heroism. Oppression is labeled peace. Gentleness is mocked. Restraint is disparaged. Love is twisted. Between these two trees, the poor are maligned while the rich are adored. The prophets are silenced while the profane are revered. The saints are assailed, and the adulterous are esteemed. Between these two trees, kids are a commodity, women are treated like property, and race is justification for abject savagery. Between these two trees, despair has become our native tongue. And agony has become our anthem. Between these two trees, life is hard. Hard to connect with others. Hard to connect with ourselves. Hard to connect with God. Listen, I love your theme about being present where you are, but I don't know about you, But it's really hard for me to be present where I am when I feel so incredibly alone. It's really hard to be present where I am when I feel so incredibly alone. It's because we all crave presence. Presence of another, the acknowledgement of our presence. We all crave presence because we all crave God. Jesus seems to be crying out this same desire in Mark chapter 15, verse 34. When he cries out from the cross, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? Man, that verse ticked me off for a long time. It really made me mad. It angered me. Because I'm looking at Jesus on the cross. He is hanging between two trees. And it's his moment of greatest despair, his moment of intense loneliness, and God abandons him? God hangs him out to dry? He isn't with him? There's a part of it where I looked at this text and I was like, you're betraying the name Emmanuel, God with us. It's hard for me to call you the great I am, which literally means to be present. When I look at Mark 15:34. That text really bothered me. Until I realized all Jesus is doing is singing a song. He's singing Psalm 22, a psalm of David. He is singing a psalm that begins, my God, why have you forsaken me? So this is the question I begin to ask myself. Okay, why this psalm? I mean, there's 150 psalms. He could have chosen any of them. Why this psalm at this moment as he's hanging on a cross between two trees? Why did Jesus choose to sing this psalm? Because what I found with working with people, especially in hospice care, is that at times when people are on their deathbeds, even if they have Alzheimer's or dementia, sometimes they begin to sing a song. And it's usually a song that goes back to their childhood. It's a song that brings them solace, a song that brings them peace. And if I was going to choose out of the 150 Psalms, I don't know if I would choose the one that begins, my God, why have you forsaken me? And honestly, as you keep reading, it just gets worse. My God, why have you forsaken me? Psalm 22, verse 1. Why are you so far from saving me? So far from my cries of anguish. My God, I cry out by day, but you do not answer. By night, but I find no rest. Abandonment, do you hear it? But then comes verse 3. Two powerful words begin verse 3 that makes me stop and say, maybe I don't understand the whole story. Because verse 3 starts with this, and yet, you are enthroned as the Holy One. You are the one Israel praises. In you our ancestors put their trust. They trusted, and you delivered them. To you they cried out and were saved. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. What begins as abandonment, all of a sudden starts to strike the chord of presence. Why is Jesus singing this psalm while he's hanging on a cross? Verses 6 through 11, it repeats the same pattern. But I am a worm and not a man, scorned by everyone, despised by the people. All who see me mock me. They hurl insults, shaking their heads. He trusts in the Lord, they say. Let the Lord rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. Do you hear abandonment? And yet, verse 9, you brought me out of the womb. You made me trust in you even at my mother's breast. From birth I was cast on you. From my mother's womb you have been my God. Do not be far from me. For trouble is near, and there is no one to help. And you can almost hear the words whispered, but you. Do not be far from me, for trouble is near, and there is no one to help but you. He begins with a chord of abandonment, and yet it ends on a chord of presence. Why is Jesus singing this psalm? Verse 16, my goodness, I can't even tell if I'm in the halls of David or if I'm at the foot of the cross. Verse 16, dogs surround me, a pack of villains encircles me. They pierce my hands and my feet. Why is Jesus singing this psalm? All my bones are on display. People stare and gloat over me. They divide my clothes among them and cast lots for my garment. Why is Jesus singing this psalm? But you, Lord, do not be far from me. You are my strength. Come quickly to help me. Why is Jesus singing this psalm? It's easy to look at this world between two trees and only see abandonment. To not see the presence of God no matter where you look, no matter what station you turn to, no matter what class you attend. As my daughter taught me a couple years ago, she says, Dad, even if I'm a room full of people, I can still feel alone. And yet, maybe our eyes are playing tricks on us. For what may seem like a desert may actually be God's grace. What may seem like abandonment may actually be God's presence. Why is Jesus singing this psalm? I don't think it's because of the way it begins. I think it's because Jesus knows how this psalm ends. Look in verse 22. I declare your name to my people. In the assembly I will praise you. You who fear the Lord, praise him. All you descendants of Jacob, honor him. Revere him, all you descendants of Israel. Why? Listen to verse 24. For he has not despised or scorned the suffering of the afflicted one. He has not hidden his face from him, but he has listened to his cry for help. Why is Jesus singing this psalm? Because he knows how the story ends. He knows that when we are in our deserts, he knows that we will be tempted to even ask to go back to Egypt. He knows what abandonment feels like. But between two trees, Jesus sings this psalm because he knows that God never leaves, that God never abandons, that he never stops writing his story, even if we don't know how the story ends. In order for you to be present to those around you, you must first embrace the presence of the great I am. I am, which means to be. You must embrace the name of the one we call Emmanuel, God with us. In order for you to be present where you are, you must learn how to first embrace the presence of the one that says at the end of Matthew's gospel, for truly I will be with you always to the very end of the age. For it is his presence that teaches us how to be present. The Bible ends where it begins, because I think it's trying to remind us of the cross, the true tree of life between two trees. That what looks like abandonment is actually presence, which is why I love the way Psalm 22 ends. Verse 29, it says, all the rich of the earth will feast and worship. All who go down to the dust will kneel before him. Those who cannot keep themselves alive, posterity will serve him. Future generations will be told about the Lord. They will proclaim his righteousness, declaring to a people yet unborn that he has done it. My prayer for Abilene Christian University is that that may be true for you and for everyone around you.